In the heart of the Middle East, a region already mired in tensions, the conflict between Israel and Hamas has turned the area into a witch's cauldron that threatens to unleash regional chaos. However, the epicenter of this storm is not limited to local clashes. Rising tensions between the United States and Iran add an explosive element to the equation. The theater of operations expands to Yemen, where complications increase with the attack on U.S. forces by Iranian proxies. Added to this is the intervention of the coalition led by the United States and the United Kingdom against the Houthis in Yemen, creating an additional front in the conflict. The situation in Iraq becomes even more complex with the bombing of a U.S. post, an act that, according to two Iraqi security officials and a government source, has intensified regional tensions. Armed groups backed by Iran soon attacked U.S. troops in Iraq, in a swift response to threats from Tehran and accusations against Israel for an attack in Damascus. The confrontation reaches its peak with the attack against the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps (IRGC) in Syria. Tehran's promise of retaliation against Israel materializes in an attack that claims the life of an Iraqi and possibly an American. The fallout includes evaluations for traumatic brain injuries among U.S. service members in Iraq after Iranian-backed militias launched a barrage of ballistic missiles and rockets at Al-Assad Air Base in the country's west. According to the U.S. Central Command (CENTCOM), the missiles, launched around 6:30 p.m. Baghdad time on Saturday, were mostly intercepted by the base's air defense systems. Despite this, some impacted the base, resulting in damage yet to be assessed. The CENTCOM statement confirms that several U.S. service members are being treated for traumatic brain injuries, while at least one Iraqi soldier was injured in the attack. The spiral of violence, fueled by accusations, threats, and reprisals, raises concerns about a broader regional confrontation. The Middle East, already in turmoil, faces an uncertain future as the winds of geopolitics blow furiously between the United States and Iran, threatening to engulf the entire region in a whirlwind of chaos and conflict. On the Middle East's complex geopolitical chessboard, pieces move with calculated precision, setting off a series of events that threaten to plunge the region into unpredictable chaos. It all begins with the claim of the Islamic Resistance of Iraq, an Iranian-backed militia, claiming responsibility for an attack. However, this time, the tactic has changed. Instead of the usual Iranian-made drones and rockets, the militia opts for higher-powered ballistic missiles, raising tensions in the already volatile region. The repercussions soon arrive from Tehran, where President Ibrahim Raisi announces Iran's determination to respond to the attack in Damascus, which claimed the lives of 5 members of the Revolutionary Guard. Accusations fly towards Israel, blamed for the attack. Raisi, in a firm tone, warns that the Islamic Republic will not leave the crimes of the Zionist regime unanswered. The White House, for its part, does not underestimate the seriousness of the situation. Deputy National Security Advisor John Feiner issues strong statements Sunday, highlighting the seriousness of the attack by Iranian-backed militants on an Iraqi site housing U.S. personnel. He assures that the United States will respond firmly to build deterrence and hold accountable those groups that persist in their attacks. In a strategic shift, the Biden government decides to take the confrontation to another front, Yemen. In agreement with U.S. defense authorities, it is preparing for a large-scale military assault against the Houthis and their Iranian proxies, accused of acts of terrorism in the region. Deliberations at the White House are considering options ranging from massive airstrikes to amphibious operations against key ports, such as Hodeidah. The idea is to send a clear message about the United States' commitment to curbing the influence of Iran and its proxies in the region. In this intricate power game, strategic decisions and latent threats weave a tapestry of uncertainty over the Middle East. As diplomacy mixes with belligerent rhetoric, the region finds itself on the brink of an abyss, with the potential consequences of a regional conflict of still unknown proportions. In the intricate geopolitical scenario of the Middle East, events unfold with a deadly choreography, revealing a network of intrigues and tensions that span multiple borders. It all begins with the murder of 5 members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard in Syria, carried out by Israel hours before the devastating missile attacks against Ain al-Assad. The cunning Israeli response, which targets the Revolutionary Guard headquarters directly, is not an isolated act. but rather an offshoot of the strikingly expanding conflict in Gaza. An alleged Israeli officer, in revealing testimony, suggests that Mossad has been monitoring Iran in Syria and Lebanon for considerable time. This strategic attack against the headquarters is, according to the officer, a direct response to Hezbollah's border incursions and Houthis' provocations in the Red Sea. What adds layers of complexity to the conflict is the apparent collaboration between Syrian President al-Assad and the Mossad. Reports suggest that al-Assad provided information to Mossad about activities at a Damascus building and a member of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard before the attack on Ain al-Assad. This collaboration, guided by strategic reasons, highlights the sophistication of the ins and outs that govern relations in the region. The Mossad, taking advantage of the information, launches an air operation in Syrian airspace over the Golan Heights. Israeli planes, with calculated precision, attack the Iranian headquarters and another building in Damascus, marking the beginning of a new escalation in the tense relationship between Israel and Iran. Syrian state sources, in an attempt to contextualize the events, point out that the attack occurred in the hours after an attack on a residential building in Damascus. Iran and Syria, for their part, do not hesitate to point to Israel as responsible for the attack. This accusation adds to a series of recent actions against Iranian-backed militias in the region, actions that Tehran uses to flex its power in an increasingly volatile Middle East. Although Israel maintains a strategic silence about the events, Iran instead proclaims the losses in its ranks, highlighting the identities of the fallen. Hojatollah al-Midvar, Ali Agaid Mohammadi, Mohammed Amin Samadi and Said Karimi are named as victims of the attacks, amplifying the human tragedy in the midst of a conflict that expands beyond geographical borders to weave a plot of international dimensions. In the complex geopolitical scenario that encompasses the Middle East, events unfold like pieces of a strategic chess, revealing deep connections and growing tensions between regional actors. The starting point is the figure of al-Midvar, a senior Iranian official in charge of sending weapons to Syria and Iraq, according to information from the Pentagon. This direct connection between Iran and the conflict zones in Syria and Iraq is pointed out by an anonymous Pentagon official, who highlights the growing integration of war fronts, exacerbating regional instability. This analysis points to the complexity of the events unfolding in the region and suggests that the attacks are intertwined in a fabric of interconnected conflicts. Israel's attack on the Iranian headquarters in Syria transcends local borders to have global implications. This bold act marks one of Israel's most significant strikes against Iranian assets abroad since the start of the conflict in Gaza, raising the stakes in the already tense international landscape. Israel, in his view, is immersed in a multi-front struggle against Iranian-backed groups in the Middle East. From Hezbollah in Lebanon to the Houthis in Yemen, Israel and the United States see their interests threatened. Tehran, for its part, seeks to expand its influence in the region, triggering a series of conflicts that challenge regional stability. This complex picture is woven by Israel's continued attacks on Iranian-backed Syrian targets, a response to provocations that emerged after the Hamas attack on October 7. Israel's loss of regional deterrence following this event has motivated strategic actions to restore its position in the region. On the domestic front, Israel faces constant challenges from Hezbollah, a U.S.-designated terrorist organization, which threatens to open a new front on its northern border. The recent statement by the Israeli armed forces about the presence near a hospital in Khan Yunis highlights the complexity of the situation. Although they claimed the presence was previously coordinated with authorities, a nearby shooting results in the injury of a staff member, raising questions and highlighting ongoing tensions. These seemingly isolated events fuel Western and Arab fears about Israel's seemingly indiscriminate operations in the region. The fight against Hamas, which has taken root in the urban landscape of Khan Yunis, becomes a key element in this complex geopolitical puzzle, with the potential to have global repercussions.